Hello, my friends. Have a merry, merry, very, very happy Christmas to all of you. I wish you all the very best. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about, hope it won't be too long, about our culture, Christianity, since we are going to celebrate Christmas. And a whole of other things. I don't know whether they will take me. Certainly tradition. I was teaching the last lesson today before the holidays, and it was a very low-level IGCSE sociology. And in sociology, you have to study the interaction between individuals and society, and the organizations in society, and the family is one of them. And in sociological terms, the family is referred to as the primary socialization agent, as it were. Okay, so meaning that we get into the culture, the first teachers are our parents, are the family, and that is called in sociological terms the primary socialization tool. Okay, so by the time we get to school, we already know certain things about what to do, what not to do, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and so on. So the family is the primary source of socialization, and of course then the schools and universities as the secondary tool of socialization of the individual into society. And I was dealing with all that, sort of revising. And then I thought, well, this socialization term is actually a little bit old-fashioned. It no longer reflects what is happening today in our culture. Rather, the socialization would be all right in the last century, and certainly until the 70s. But something happened in the 90s, and I think we can certainly from the 2000s, I don't think we can actually talk about primary source of socialization. As I see individuals today, the young and the not so young, I would say that rather than socialized, they are formatted. Industry, factory formatted, as it were. It goes well beyond socialization. Do you know why older generations, older people like me, or the generations before us, we lived in societies where there was no indoctrination. I choose the word, actually, carefully, indoctrination. Or at least it was not so vigorous, so centralized, so organized. I'm not suggesting for a moment that politicians would not tell us lies, whatever. But the indoctrination was not there. Cities have different newspapers. You could actually have a different point of view, and you were not punished because of it. But today, a young kid is continuously receiving this manure constantly from the moment he leaves his house, or perhaps even before. Perhaps his parents are in communion with all these cultural paradigms of the current regime. And by the time that kids get to kindergarten, they have been already formatted. Few, not all, are those who still have the luxury of having retained a sense of rebellion. I'm not against it, actually. I think the wish to rebel against the current narrative, as it is said today, is that impetus to rebel is actually something rather beautiful. I think it's a beautiful thing in a human being, that impetus to critique everything. But it is at the moment, even though it is there in many young people, it is sort of disorganized, it is chaotic. It lacks a system of thought. Dissidence is not organized. It has no I don't want to say backbone, because that has a different connotation. There is no vertebrae there, okay? It is therefore individuals by themselves, and therefore it is powerless. You can rebel against this and against that, and you don't accept this and you don't accept that, and you can shout at this organization and scream at the police or something like that, but there is no organized dissidence, there is no organization, there is no system. It's not solid. To confront this doctrine that is continuously injected into the body politic. And so this is a problem for the young who are formatted so early on. So when we see a brave young person, a person who speaks up, this is, to me, is a treasure. And I think we have to encourage it and protect it. How do we protect it? Well, example, showing them our own, talking to them about our own experience, and pointing the way, perhaps in the sense of this can hurt, be careful, this might hurt you, this could be dangerous for you, avoid these cliffs and these precipices. What is that due to, this lack of rebellion in most people? Well, fundamentally, the modern world, understanding the modern world in that broad sense, that phenomenon that happened in the 16th century with the Protestant Revolution, that changed how we began to see the world. But in a stricter sense, certainly from all the liberal revolutions, liberal in the sense of not classical liberalism, but or perhaps even including it actually, but certainly neoliberalism. I believe that what happened there was a fight, a confrontation against Christianity. That is a confrontation with the Christian order, with the Christian vision, with the cosmovision of the world that Christianity taught. Modernism, that is what the church calls it. In political terms, we call it liberalism or neoliberalism. I believe is a fight against the Christian vision of the world. When they look, people from other countries and different civilizations, look at the West and what is happening here in our culture, I hope they do not associate that with Christianity. The culture or lack of it in the West is not because it is Christian. It is because Christianity has been abandoned. Because Christianity has been attacked. We could argue that from the very beginning, from the time that Jesus Christ was on the cross, that's for sure. But certainly for the last 300 years, in a very direct way. Sometimes we hear, especially coming from America, the term the Judeo-Christian tradition. I don't buy it. I don't buy it because this phrase, because I remember, I'm old enough to remember when it came about, when it became diffused in society, in the United States especially, and that was the 70s. Okay, let me put it this way. Christianity, the church, accepted the whole of the Old Testament because they saw it as a prelude, as a prologue, as it were, of what was to come, and that was Jesus Christ. They accepted it into the Bible, yeah? Okay, so in terms of faith, yes, there is that connection there. But they're not the same, not for Christianity. The main difference is that Jesus Christ, Christianity accepts him, yes, as true God and true man, the Son of God. This is totally opposite what the Jewish religion teaches and stands for. So they are not the same religion. If you are a Christian, then you obviously believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. This is totally dismissed in the Jewish religion. So they are very different religions. Even though we accept the Old Testament as I said, the prologue of the things to come. To the New Testament, to the New Covenant. So what do they mean by Judeo-Christian tradition? Because there was a break there, there is a major break there. In terms of culture, I don't think so. The religious connection is there, but culturally, certainly Catholicism, the culture is Greco-Latin. That is the cultural tradition. And I came to realize that the term Judeo-Christian tradition, more than pointing to faith or religion, is actually a political statement. The Americans started using it, but it was the Calvinist, evangelical part of Christianity that Catholicism considers a heresy, until, at least until yesterday. And they got together and they created this Judeo-Christian phrase. And I think more than dealing with having to do with religion is more of a political statement. I'm not going to explain it further. If you do not understand what I'm saying, I am not going to explain it because you wouldn't understand it. There are some things that one has to figure for oneself. So what I think when I hear this Judeo-Christian, someone saying Judeo-Christian tradition, I immediately see someone who's trying to deceive me politically. Whether they do it knowingly or not, that is another matter. They could just be repeating what they hear all the time. But the people who came up with it were actually moving us in one particular direction. And so I do not admit that. The cultural tradition is Greco-Latin. I'm speaking in cultural terms, as I repeat, not in questions of faith. Because the culture of Christendom came from Greece and from Rome. It was a pagan culture, but it was not dismissed. How not so? When you speak of great personalities in the history of humanity, certainly in the history of Christianity, there is a part obviously from Jesus Christ, and there is Saint Paul, a very important man in the beginning of the Christian culture, how we were going to see the world. But there is another one that people don't know about, and I think he's very important too. And this is from the 2nd century. We're talking about culture, remember. This is from the 2nd century, Saint Justin. Now, when in the first centuries, the first 2 centuries of Christianity, and this was a question of culture, they were discussing, what to do with that pagan culture of old. It was the time of the iconoclasts also. The Protestants were not the first to go against statues. The first Christians were talking about destroying the old places, the old pagan places, including, for example, the library of Alexandria and the statues, and destroying the pagan temples and so on. And Saint Justin actually said, in a word that is, it is an expression which is kind of funny, it's a little bit amusing. He said, no, he is going to give his explanations why. He says, because even in pagan cultures, there is, and this is what makes me laugh, there is a spermatozoid logos. That's the word he used, spermatozoid logos. In other words, there are seeds of knowledge there. They were the pagans before Christianity, okay? They were people who, though they had not had the chance, they had not had access to the revealed truth of God, of Christianity. Nevertheless, they had something to give. They had something to teach us in many ways. They had, as if God had put in their heads, visions and concepts and thoughts that should not necessarily be thrown away and discarded. Concepts and theories and thoughts that are valuable to us. And so culturally, Christianity fundamentally recovered all that, but in a new way. It gave it a different interpretation. It sort of inverted the whole thing. Look, Plato and Aristotle exist today thanks to the fact that Christianity decided not to destroy them. Homer and Virgil exist today thanks to the fact that Christianity decided not to destroy them. That they saw that they had something to teach us also. There were many things that Christianity adopted, accepted, brought along with them, without the church deciding that we would incorporate and respect this. Many of those cultures and religions, even with probably have disappeared, as many have in the past. Many other religions have devastated the legacy that preceded their own religion or their own culture. Islam, when it extended throughout the whole north of Africa, which was, by the way, the most Romanized territory in the world. The first thing they did is to do away with them, to erase that legacy. Almost all civilizations are founded on the disruption or the destruction of what had preceded them. The great novelty of Christianity is that it renewed it, it vivified it, it gave it a different lore and obviously a different understanding, a different wisdom. And Christianity, beyond the fact that it flourished in one specific geographical place, is going to therefore assimilate to itself the whole of the pagan world. This was a great intuition by St. Paul and also St. Justin. If we read, for example, at the end of the Gospels or the Acts of the Apostles, we see that always the disciples of Jesus Christ met in secret with the door closed at night. And the texts always add, quote, "They met like that for fear of the Jews." And this expression is repeated. Now, this is, an unusual situation because these people were Jewish. They were part of the Jewish community. They were Jewish people. And nevertheless, they realized that in that situation, the Jews were a great danger to them, if we can put it like that. And so St. Paul finds the way out here. He says that we have to assimilate the instruments and the cultural ways and certain aspects of pagan cultures that can offer us something that is valuable. This at the time must have been almost subversive. I mean, really difficult to understand. They were Jewish, after all. So, can you imagine the situation of this person who is Jewish and being told that it is a good thing for them to learn the languages of the empire, Greek and Latin, to accept the laws of the oppressor, as it were, the Roman law? It had to be rather disconcerting at the time. And for the first centuries of Christianity, this is the cause of much uneasiness and discomfort. How is it that these people, they would ask, how is it that you ask us that, to these people who are persecuting us, these people who are martyring us, who are making life impossible for us, really, why should we assimilate their administrative organization, their laws, and so on, their culture? It sounded kind of insane, I suppose. But that is what Christianity culture actually does. It assumes, it accepts Roman law, Greek philosophy, accepts Greek and Latin as forms of expression, spreads the gospel in that way. Let us not forget that the epistles of St. Paul are all written in Greek. Greek was at the time the lingua franca of the empire, as English is today. You know, wherever you go, people, better or worse, will communicate in English. In the Roman Empire, it was actually Greek, ancient Greek. Latin came afterwards, almost with the fall of the Roman Empire. But at that time, everyone kind of understood Greek. And St. Paul, when he has to defend himself, from those who wanted to kill him, he actually invokes his condition of being a Roman citizen. I'd say that Christianity in cultural terms is actually saving this culture of this Greco-Latin culture, this Greco-Latin thought. Of course, it would, let's say, illuminate it and enliven it with a new doctrine, a new moral code, things which are very, very different. I mean, things like love your enemy and forgive your those who have hurt you. But in terms of culture, this Greco-Roman Latin culture is there much more than it is certainly Judaism or the Jewish culture, which culturally is less important than what a lot of people believe. When you think of, for example, Catholics, devotion of veneration of saints, for example, so typical, so associated with Catholicism, saints being holy men. This has to be understood in the sense of not having rejected, but having accepted this Greco-Roman culture. For a Jew, this would be blasphemy, I suppose, to venerate saints. It would be, I presume, inexplicable to Jewish mentality. On the other hand, if you understand it from a pagan mentality, it was quite acceptable. Because in the Greco-Roman world, in pagan cultures, they had the gods, the Penatic gods. Each family, each city had its hearth gods, and the Penatics in some way devotion to them. And so you would explain that devotion, or that devotion to holy men. The Greco-Roman world would understand it. And this is very important in Catholic culture. So I said that I don't accept that culturally this Judeo-Christian tradition, if by tradition you mean culture, I don't accept that. I see that as a meatball that tries to mix things, not contrary, not opposite, but irreconcilable. Okay, so that's just by the by, but I was talking about young people and this lack of this association that exists, this itemization of individuals. I think that that is because this isolation, I think it's because in many ways tradition has been destroyed. Tradition throughout the centuries meant that the generation that preceded us hands over to us those things that they considered of value. And not only, obviously, your parents, you inherit the property of your parents, but there is another kind of property. They also hand over to us things that are immaterial, culture, the links that join communities together. And that is, one could even say, a sort of a spiritual legacy that they considered valuable, and therefore they would transmit it to the next generation because they thought it was worthy of being protected and transmitted and passed on. Modernism destroys this because of its exaltation of individualism. In other words, we have become self-sufficient monads, not nomads, monads, like items, sort of a mini-gods to ourselves. We can look after ourselves, thank you very much. We are new atoms. We can create a new world. We can configure the boundaries of our reality. And so we are in no need necessarily of any legacy of yours, of those who have preceded us. And this has become more and more pronounced in the West over time, unfortunately. And so we have more and more disconnected societies. More disconnected societies have been formed. And so because we are disconnected from a common culture, we have more confrontations and antagonisms, which are encouraged, because the point is to have this isolation man. Confrontations internal within the society and of course external, but internal we see it, women against men, young against the old, until we are converted into, we are made to be into these monads, these items, this isolated item, this isolated monad. And with this isolated individual, you can do, if you have the power, pretty much like clay, pretty much what you wish, what you like. It's a sort of a plasticine, as it were. You can mold it. You can manipulate it. So as modernity advances, it's natural that each time we have more and more, increasingly more disconnected societies, internally more broken, where nothing makes sense anymore, nothing seems to make sense anymore, and hence the absurdities, the chaos, these ideas that become to some more and more attractive as modernity advances. For a time, modernity tried to create alternative systems to the Christian vision of the world, to the Christian order. Great modern philosophers such as Kant and Hegel, won't discuss them now, but Karl Marx, of course. They set up philosophical systems that were almost like substitutes of religion. But since they were false religions, what happens? What happens is hatreds and antagonisms and disappointments and resentments. And we find that modernism, as time goes by, modernism is now losing even that glue that held it together, and it's becoming almost like a mush thing, each time more putrefied, each time more rotten. And so now, after we accept that, this isolated man, what is he given? Well, there you are. We deliver you now chaos and confusion. That's why chaos and the absurd, lack of meaning, lack of sense, it is a topic that in modern culture is getting greater and greater importance and prominence in the last 3 centuries. And now we come to the 20th century, and that way of viewing the world becomes the central vision of the culture of the West. We saw, you remember the incident in the Los Angeles Lakers, with those people, those men dressed as women and mocking nuns and doing all kinds of things with the crucifix and so on. And then you remember the French Olympics and all that. And now, after the shock, now it's happening in many other places. This thing about mocking, certainly the Catholic faith, openly. And it's a sort of, look how cool I am. This is the next thing. The next thing in the French Olympics, the next thing to mocking Christ in the Last Supper. That was the Passover, yeah. And what next? Because it needs to go on after the shock and awe. When you see it a second time, something similar, and when you see it for the third time, then it becomes, I don't know that to say normalized, but you almost expect it and you look away, but it's there and it's going to grow and grow. What next? The pedo something or other, or the what next? What are they going to show us? How are they going to display themselves and the mock of Christianity? Incest? Well, here you are, incest. And then what is next after that? Well, incest of, your little girl here with who is suffering from Down syndrome. And what next after that? Well, the little girl with Down syndrome, and then you throw her out of the window or down a precipice. What next? Animals, how are they going to shock you next? This is the advance of irrationality, of the absurd, of the grotesque cell display. Differently, also, I want to talk about the manipulation of the individual, many forms, but that of language, for example. You see it in politics, yes, how it is used and how people are manipulated by changing the meaning of the word. Since I'm talking about it's near Christmas and I'm talking about religion and Christianity, my example will be that expression, the interruption of pregnancy. There is no interruption of a pregnancy. You understand that. Something that you interrupt is something that you can go back and resume. I can interrupt the reading of this novel here now because I'm going to make a cup of coffee. No, actually today I'm having a little cognac here. So I can interrupt this video to have a drink, and then I can resume it and come back. If you interrupt the flow of water, you can do that in the river or wherever with a dam, and it is later you can go and take it out, the dike or whatever, and the water begins to flow again. You interrupted the flow of water. You cannot interrupt a pregnancy. It is used as so many other things. This is an example. As so many other things, is a euphemism, okay, to change the meaning of something. You are, as a matter of fact, what you are doing is falsifying the language. So deep down, what you're doing is you're trying to lie about what something really is. And in order not to appear a lie, you give a different meaning or a different expression to that. You manipulate language. Let me talk about I'm talking about language. I want to talk about the narrowing of language so much today. It is shrinking. We're using too many expressions that come sometimes from different cultures. Even in English, we tend to adopt, this is very, very easily, you can see it very easily in other languages that are actually translating from the American English things that are totally expressions and proverbs and things that are totally foreign to that culture. It's a kind of colonization of the culture through language. But even in English, it's shrinking. Language is the genius of a language is that capacity of a people to create expressions around a popular wisdom, and we tend to use examples that are foreign to our culture, and it is a form of colonization, I would say. Even in the English language, there is a sort of a cultural globalization. It's very evident. Look, there is a difference between imitation and incorporation of something. For example, Chaucer's cautionary tales in the 12th, 13th century. Was it the 12th, 13th century? Yeah. The cautionary tales. Hilaire Belloc also has in this, at the beginning of the 20th century, wonderful cautionary tales for children. Well, this cautionary tales thing actually is imitating an Italian tradition. Sort of short novelettes, sometimes moralizing, sometimes not, okay? But short novelettes that taught you sort of how to govern your life, sometimes with a little touch of the picaresque, actually. And this was assimilated by several authors from different countries, from different languages. But the thing is that they turned it around, they made it their own. They integrated that idea, that foreign idea, into their own culture. And this is good, this is fruitful. You don't just transpose it and imitate it as such. That, stray imitation, I'm talking about literature and politics and so on, is actually colonization, I think. In literature, for example, what happens is that in a lot of countries are publishing books and novels and fiction and things to a great extent imitating the American novels that are coming out. And American sort of fiction is, you have a lot of these psychopaths perpetrating ritual crimes, and on each victim they write a verse from the apocalypse. It's with the tip of a knife or something, a very, very this thing with the apocalypse, with Revelation. All this, when you transfer it like that to another culture, is strange, is foreign. Why are they doing that? It is really demented. It's crazy, and it is parasitizing actually other cultures. And this is notable in the imitation of cinema and thrillers and romantic comedies, which are really pathetic. The cinema or the literature of a country is the one that explains one's own culture, that one that endures. Sure, you see something, oh, that's a good idea, but then you have to assimilate it into your own culture. It just bothers me, this sort of imitation, so that you can bring it into your own and enrich your own tradition. Yeah, that is its purpose, really, to revive it. So incorporate rather than just imitate, but incorporate it by making it your own, not just leaving it as a mere imitation. So let me give you an example. So you hear, you heard about the last, I don't know, Murakami book that he has written in Japan and so on. So now they are going to write kind of the same novel, but instead of things happening in Tokyo, they happen in New York, or they happen in Melbourne, or whatever it might be. I don't like it. It's a sort of an inferiority complex. It is a hindrance to one's own culture, one's own tradition. This just embracing of foreign customs. And this, of course, is applauded now and exalted by whom? By these distributors of modern day anathemas and modern day pontifical bulls. So when you incorporate something foreign, immediately the regime elevates you as an author. I just this is magna nonsense. It bothers me. Okay. Okay, so look, I think, let me put it this way. Is all this happening, globalism, all this a conspiracy? let me put it this way. I would say, you know that there are good angels, bad angels. There were some bad angels who were too proud, this and that. Okay. I think there is an angelic, bad angel-like conspiracy. What on earth are you talking about? Bringing angels into this whole thing. Well, I'm not going to explain it. If you don't know what I mean, then I shouldn't explain it. Some things cannot be explained. Look. In early Christianity, did you hear about the discipline of the arcane? It was such a thing, the discipline of the arcane. That meant that not everything had to be explained. Because there are many things that someone doesn't have any idea about what you're talking about what you are alluding to. And if he doesn't know that, no explanation that you give is going to help, is going to do much. In fact, it might actually have the opposite effect. Because they could have immediately just take the opposite view or misunderstanding. Look, the example of the discipline of the arcane. In the first centuries, okay, of Christianity, I'm talking about Christianity because Christmas is here. All right. So, under Roman domination, obviously we know Christians had quite a few problems, yeah? But one of the problems that they had, many of the problems they had, is that the pagans came to think that during the Mass, the Christians, they sacrificed children and then ate them. That is what many thought. How did they come to think this? Many Christians were killed because of this, because they celebrated the Eucharist rites. And children, the pagans believed that children were being dismembered and killed and then eaten. Imagine how they saw them. Why was this? Well, obviously many reasons, but one of them was that Christians said to pagans who had no idea at all of what the religion was about, that they worshipped a god, a different god, who had actually been a child and he had been here with us. And then he had left his body and so on. You know where that is going to take us. And during the Mass, you could get the body of Christ, the body of that God. They tried to explain. So what? And he had been a child. He had been born here. How well they explained it, we don't know. But what we do know is that many pagans understood this, that the Christians actually dismembered children and ate them during the Mass. And so what fathers of the Church taught them was that, including St. Augustine actually, they said, they recommended this discipline of the arcane. In other words, for people who don't know anything about it, you cannot just say that, because they will not understand it. They don't have the minimum feeling as to how they're going to understand it. And and they're going to understand it in a totally wrong way. They have to have a sort of an idea of what you're talking about before you start explaining something from the cold. So they told them that this discipline of the arcane, not to necessarily go out and talk about it. In other words, yes, if people were interested in good faith, interested in finding out their way of life, they were attracted to it in some way. They had something there already, a seed. Start from the very beginning, start throwing sort of hints, as it were, so that would deepen their interest and their understanding. So some things just cannot be explained when you're out there and you just don't even know what you're alluding to. So I will leave it there. Now, other things dealing with religion. Things that we hear, in today's world. Well, perhaps we always heard them, but certainly today. Well, religion. Okay, the reason why you believe in this one religion is because you were born in this environment. And if you were born in another environment, then you would be believing, you would have another religion. That's one thing. And the other is these two things that we're facing today. Religion nowadays really, I am an intelligent person. I am able of critical thought. I really cannot accept all these religion, especially what they say organized religion. I really can't accept all that. Those are the two questions always there. Okay, so in order to address the first, you only are of this religion because you were born there. Yes, to a large extent. Yes and no. Look, the first is the capacity to discern all human beings have, to discern good and bad, good and evil, that this is good and this is bad. We all have that, regardless of different religions. Any civilization, in any historical context, this intimate, inscribed, imprinted knowledge that we have that this is good and this is bad is in all religions, and even in not necessarily religions, but civilizations, philosophies, in all religious cultures. There is a very interesting book, by C.S. Lewis. Have you read it? The Abolition of Man. A little book. And at the back of the book, there is a list of moral maxims taken from all religions. And as I said, not only religions, but schools of thought as well, which sometimes are not religious. So it's very interesting, actually, to see that Catholic morality, Muslim morality, Confucianism, Hinduism, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, they all give the same kind of advice about moral questions. In all cultures, religious or not, you are told that, for example, you have a duty to take care of your parents. When your parents are old, you cannot abandon them. You cannot leave them out to rot. You have to take care of them personally, yourself, you, not the government, not anybody, you. All cultures. Why? Because the light of reason, I would say, and the capacity for moral discernment is common to all humanity. It's common to humankind, to mankind. And religions, what religions have tried to do is to bring together, to summarize is not the right word, to bring together all those moral mandates that are inscribed in human nature. Now, I'm a Catholic, so in the Catholic faith, I think that moral discernment gets much, much deeper. It allows you a greater capacity of discernment within those moral precepts that are inscribed in the human soul, but that they flourish in all forms of civilizations that have been there throughout history, religious or not religious, Christian or not Christian. So that objection that if you were born somewhere else in another culture, you would have a different religion, probably yes. But you would come very often to the same conclusions in terms of moral judgments. Probably in 90% of the cases, actually. I would say that a Muslim in 90% of the cases, perhaps even 99, I'm just throwing figures, I don't know, but will consider bad the same things that a Catholic considers bad or wrong. Or even a Hindu, yes, because natural reason enlightens you and allows you to discern. What for a Catholic, from a point of view of my religion, the degree of deepening of those moral truths as revelation and so on. The experience that, and this is not common to other religions, the experience and the knowledge that God has been with us, that He's not only an entity up there in heaven, I'm talking about my own religion now, that He's not an impersonal God up there, but it is a personal God with whom you can communicate, you can have a personal relationship with. That is appealing to me. So, and many other things. So I'm addressing here the fact that yes, I'm Catholic. I was born in Spain, so therefore I am Catholic. But many of us abandon the church and so on, and then we come back. I have actually, whether I was born in this Catholic country or not, I would now accept it, not because I was born in it, but because I have come to realize that this I believe. Had I been born in another culture, yes, I would probably be something else, but I wouldn't necessarily. The religion would be different, but we wouldn't. My point is that we will not disagree in matters of morality because those are inscribed in the human soul. Now, the second objection that we hear, I'm sorry, I didn't answer the question perhaps, but I don't think that, since we agree, I would say in the moral concepts of man, that we would necessarily have to fight each other on how we understand God and our relationship with God. I don't think that that is necessary. But anyway, I can't do anything any better than that about that concern. But the second objection, that now we are so clever, we don't need religion. I mean, that is sad. I can understand that in the 18th century and 19th century, with the progress of science, that science was practically worshipped, that people thought, oh my gosh, look what science can do, and religion was seen as something silly and superstition and so on. But today you can see that the religion is superstition and that science is going to deliver you from what? Today? With the breakdown of society, you consider that religion is... you have to stop and think about it. So this idea, I am a progressive person, I am a person of progress, I am a critical person, I therefore cannot accept all these mandates and this. That is a poison that modernism injects into you. It started a long time ago, 500 years ago, with this individualism and this free interpretation of doctrine, etc., etc. If it is up to me, you know where that leads. And that individualism, joined to this worshipping of science in the 18th century, I am self-sufficient. Consider this, please consider this. 20 centuries of accumulated wisdom are of no use to me because I am what? I am cleverer than all that? I am cleverer than Aristotle, I'm cleverer than St. Thomas Aquinas, smarter than St. Augustine, smarter than Plato. I'm much smarter. Disregard tradition. I'm much smarter, so all this is doesn't mean anything to me. It's up to what I decide. That's so silly. And so now I dictate my own mandates because I'm, progressive person, smarter, more intelligent than It is pathetic. It is sad. Sad. A medieval philosopher said that for sure we can come to know more than Aristotle knew, more than Plato knew, more than all those great thinkers of the past knew. We can actually get to know more than they did. Yeah, we can, but Can you please realize that we are dwarfs on the shoulders of giants? That's what he said. We are dwarfs on the shoulders of giants. Just because you are up there, you are resting on those shoulders of tradition that came before you. If you let those go, you know what happens to you up there? Every single person who thinks that he or she is more intelligent than the wisdom accumulated over centuries, that person is a fool. He's a nothing, he's a big mouth. He believes himself a mini-god. You have to be silly, you have to be retarded to think that you are a mini-god. You can't even decide when you're going to be born or die or what is going to happen to you tomorrow. So you're making your own rules? Okay, so religion tells you that stealing is bad. Oh, well, what? Stealing is good? Stealing is a wonderful thing? It is an expression of incompetence that modernism has made this person be sort of deified. In fact, the beautiful thing about tradition is that you can actually go further. Tradition is not stopping you. You can actually go further. You can go further than the greatest sage of humanity, but only, please, from a position of reverence for that sage. Respect for what has come before you. Respect for what that sage is transmitting to you. So I think that in the moral and philosophical legacy of my religion, of the Catholic tradition, for example, there is such an extraordinary wealth, of thought. And what I'm saying, this is about my religion, but if you have a different one, and you are against mine, whenever I speak of the Catholic Church and the Catholic religion, I always get these comments, which are, they obviously know nothing, very little about it. Sometimes I leave them there just for people to see, my goodness, is this the degree of knowledge of this person? There is such an extraordinary wealth to which each of us can perhaps contribute, a little grain of sand or something, can contribute something. But please, first, the humility of acknowledging what came before you, all that tradition, before you even go against it, before you attack it. Can you please try to understand what it is rather than what you think it is? Don't be so pathetic and so grotesque as to give opinions about something that you know nothing about. So is this I'm smarter than all of those idiots. Speaking seriously, that attitude is grotesque. How about those who, religion, nothing, the modern day atheists, agnostics, and so on. There are those who disdain religion. There are those who just simply say, quite honestly, look, I cannot bring myself. I do not disdain the people who believe, but in this, in God, but I really, quite honestly, cannot I have too many doubts. I cannot really bring myself to accepting it, these religious beliefs. I find it difficult to believe that there is one creator. Okay, all that. All right. All right. So, where do I start? You don't believe in God. You don't believe in a creator to begin with. Okay. So how do you understand the fact that you exist? How do you understand this, that you exist? Don't say that you don't know the answer. If you are an atheist, then you have to come to the conclusion that you exist because of this pure random combination of matter, right? Of course. So there is this combination of matter until it crystallizes in a human being. But that's demented. Think about it. I think it is more demented than believing that there is one God. That you are the product of just random matter coming together. It is actually much more rational, I think. Don't bring in religion into it if you don't want, but it's actually more rational to think of an intelligence that creates than to think of a random combination of carbon. It is completely implausible that in that random combination of carbon could actually result in a human being, the human being that you are. The possibilities that this random combination of carbon would result in a rational being like you are, to me, is implausible. It has no basis in reality. This is the great drama of evolutionism. Let me put it this way. The mere evolution of matter that leads to what we are. The evolution of matter that leads to what we are, that to me is grotesque. Because the mere evolution of matter, apart from it being a probabilistic calculation, which is inconceivable, infinitesimal, first it would have to be an organized combination. It couldn't be enough matter and carbon to combine. There wouldn't be enough matter and carbon to combine millions and millions in different ways, millions of different ways. But it would have to combine jointly for your eye to work in one certain fashion, for your digestive system to work in a certain way. There would have to be an organization there, not just everything random, surely. How do you combine all that in a coherent way? There has to be an organization there. That to me is, that organization is coherent. And if not, what you end up is having is a sort of a celebration of chaos. It is infinitely more rational to think that there is an intelligence that organizes that. Besides, look at nature. Look at nature. Okay, so I have a little bit of cognac here in a lovely glass. This glass was given to me by my aunt, who died about 20 years ago, in the last Christmas we had together. So I'm drinking cognac out of it. Okay. So we have this glass, and this glass contains a liquid. And the liquid is completely separated from the glass itself. It's not fused with it. Okay? So you say, what are you talking about? I'm not able to explain physics and the laws of physics, but I think there is organization in matter. The liquid has some molecules, and the cup has other molecules, and they are different, and they are combined in a perfect form, so that some make the liquid that is inside liquid, and the others create the solid support. Okay? That is to say, when I drink, I don't drink the cup. I'm drinking what is inside the cup. Why? Okay, there are two bodies here. One liquid, one solid. And they are perfectly organized. Because everything in creation is organized. It has order. It is ordered. It is perfectly ordered. Because the atom is perfectly ordered in its distribution of neutrons and electrons and protons. It is perfectly ordered, so as to be specifically one thing. So you say to me, okay, so you prove to me the existence of God. I can't show you, I can't prove to you the existence of God. I'm only going to contemplate matter. Through the contemplation of matter, I think it is much more rational to arrive from this contemplation, this looking and studying of matter, to ascend to a first principle, and that is the first motionless motor that St. Thomas speaks of. The other response, I assume chaos. I assume that chaos is what organized the world. Chaos, random. But then I I believe in that chaos and that randomness, but then I find an organized, ordered world. And I continue to think that there is randomness. I think that that is irrational, actually. Besides, where does matter come from? From nothing? Nothing can produce nothing. Something cannot be produced from nothing. Well, anyway. Let me have another sip of my cognac. I think I'm going beyond what I can explain well. It makes no sense to me that you would believe that everything is random. Anyway, I think that atheism has no way out, in the sense that many times when it comes to saying that the believer cannot scientifically demonstrate the existence of God, that it is scientifically impossible. Of course, many people have said this before. You cannot demonstrate the inexistence of God either. So this is a sterile conversation. So what I think is that with this mind of ours, what we have to try and spend our time doing is much more profitable. What we have to do with this mind of ours is to try to clarify, is to try to elucidate what we actually have, what we can see and touch, things of which existence is certain. And through the discovery of something and its certain existence, to try to find why that is the way it is. I think that's a better conversation. Why is it? This is what I think we can all do. It is where we can get to, we can reach. And then not try to deny what we are, because there are many people who try to say that, for example, we fall in love, we are moved by something beautiful, a beautiful piece of music, a poem, that necessity, that need to create beauty, to give shape to our affections, to have a child. All those beautiful things that, and all that is the product of chemical reactions of our organism. My being moved, my falling in love, all that is just a chemical reaction. Beethoven sonata, Gregorian chant. And I'm moved and tears are falling and my eyes, and that is simply the product of chemical reactions in our organism. I think this is false. I think it is completely false. I don't think we are moved because there is a chemical combination in our organism. I think we get excited and moved about a beautiful something, whatever, a work of art, beautiful scenery, beautiful landscape. We are moved because there is something in us that we call the soul, that it is within us. Something supernatural within us that wants to live on. That is what makes us, wants us to retain that beauty. That is what makes us give sometimes the best of ourselves to those who come after us. And that is because there is a memory of the species that is telling us that our destiny is supernatural, our natural destiny. This writer that I admire very much always writes saying that his name is Juan Manuel Prada, and he always says that he writes this novel for those who have died and those who have not been born yet. And people obviously don't understand that very well, and he says, well, I write for those who have died because I understand they are going to enjoy this, looking at it from, what is happening today. They're probably going to enjoy reading whatever I have to say. The things that we do here on earth in our life at the moment. And we he says, I don't think we he says, I think that the things we do here on earth in our life, we do not do them only to give ourselves pleasure. No, we do them in a more supportive way to incorporate that into a heritage of the species, a memory of the species, those who have died, those here, and those yet to come. He explains it in the way that he says the artist has this vocation to live on. Why? Why do you want to live on? Why does the artist want to live on if he knows he's going to die? This thing about living on, continuing to live is not, he says, it's not, certainly not for him, it's not vanity. It goes beyond vanity. Vanity is simply a subterfuge to try to explain something much more mysterious, much more profound, that sometimes we want to deny. What vanity? Vanity? Why vanity? You're going to die, right? You're going to go ultimately into a hole, yeah? And those who are going to enjoy your work are going to go into a hole too. And when you get to a certain age, you know that is life is not too long anyway. He says, no, the longing to live on appeals to that supernatural life. He calls it the nostalgia of the species. We all know intimately that we are immortal. This is the underlying issue. But from an agnostic viewpoint, you might have more questions than answers, and you might feel more comfortable in the uncertainty that you don't know when you have doubts. than in giving a concrete answer to something that you have no sufficient proofs beyond your sensorial experience. So you are an agnostic, comfortable in doubting, in this uncertainty. Fine, but I don't think that you live comfortably in uncertainty. Do you like living without knowing, for example, if you're going out, whether it's cold or hot, or if there is a war or not a war? I mean, do you live comfortably in that uncertainty? Doubts. Okay. Yes, that's something natural to have doubts. If you have no certainties, you always are going to have doubts. But to try, and that is normal for everyone, but to try to live in that uncertainty, or you making that uncertainty a vital purpose, objective of your life, to me that seems a little bit insane. So I'm going to go outside, and I don't care if it is raining or not. I mean, if it rains, perhaps I will buy an umbrella, and no. I think it is better to say it is raining, and so therefore I'll take an umbrella with me, or not if I don't want to. Yeah, but the always the uncertainty governing your life. Why stay there for things that you can actually be certain of, if you can avoid them? Because in the end, living in that uncertainty is equivalent to accepting chaos. In general, I would say that human beings, this earthly journey of a human being, is the search for answers. I think many times you do not have an answer, but to renounce obtaining it, having it, I almost consider it inhuman to accept that way of life that is inhuman, a sort of a vegetable, animal-like. Human being is a constant inquirer. So the agnostic position, that on the one hand, it is laudable if, you say, I cannot possibly accept that. It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, fine. But to actually want to stay there and not to, something has fallen. It seems to me that that is not a way to live your life. I think that you're actually giving up on something that you are renouncing. You give up when you're comfortable in this uncertainty. You give up on something that it is actually your right. You give up on something that is part of your nature, which is to try to know. That you're always going to know defectively, of course. But, that was St. Paul used to say, now, here on earth, we see everything as if through a glass, as if through a mirror, he said. Now we see everything as if through a mirror. And he said that in a time when mirrors were actually made of bronze. and so were much more sort of blurry than the ones that you have today, mirrors of glass and mercury that we have today. But I think that the need to see, even through a glass of bronze, it is natural to want to be able to see. The other way to remain happy in this uncertainty, it seems to me contra natura. To say, oh well, it's the same to me, since I cannot get to certainty, I will not think about it. No, says the agnostic, I'll continue asking myself, he might say, and perhaps I will die asking myself, says the agnostic. But the question is that since I am unable to get an answer, I am not going to just actually manufacture it. I'm not going to believe just for the sake of believing, and that is laudable. Yes, but if you start from the consideration that you are not going to find an answer because you only consider that reason is the only instrument to find that answer, this makes no sense, because you, by means of reason alone, the mystics say that sometimes you have to just allow yourself to go down that precipice of faith. It is a precipice, yes. But anyway, you depend on reason. So because you only consider that reason is the only instrument to find that answer, this makes no sense, because you, by means of reason alone, you're not going to get to know, for example, vitamin C. Do you believe that such a thing as vitamin C exists? Yes, you say, because through science and the scientific method, we know that it exists. Fine. But you yourself, have you arrived to that conclusion? Not. Have you no, not me. Somebody did, yeah? So you believe and trust in that scientist who discovered vitamin C. Why can't you trust in the person who tells you that life exists after death, for example? Because you do not trust. Perhaps you say that no, this is totally different. You're going to say, because I don't trust the thought process of that person who tells me that. Okay, that person who wants to lead me to that conclusion. Because that person has arrived to that conclusion, if you want to think about it philosophically, through the inductive method rather than the deductive method of thought of science. And one would say, well, he has arrived to it through experience. It is a radical experience that forces you to leave, to get out of your comfort zone. Look. Even if you don't believe in this, just listen. The greatest miracle of Jesus Christ, the miracle that most does away, abolishes the laws of physics, not to cure a leper or give insight to a blind. That could perhaps be done through some sort of, let's say, sort of medical means or scientific means or something. Okay, but the greatest one is this resuscitate. In other words, I am dead and now I resurrected. Wow. Okay. It's very, very, very strong, right? Because it goes totally against the laws of physics, right? Okay. Now, I'm going to make it actually even more difficult or easier for you. For example, notice that the testimony that Christ resurrects is bequeathed to the world, to posterity, is bequeathed through women. Women, 3 women. It is 3 women who go to the tomb, discover that the tomb is empty, and then they start running, tell the apostles that Christ has resurrected. And you say, why do they think of that? The obvious thing is to think, he's not here. The body has been moved, or the body has been stolen, or something did something. That is the normal way. But they went about saying that he had resurrected. To make matters worse, the testimony of women at that time, both in Jewish law and in Roman law, had no validity whatsoever. Women did not testify, for example, at court. Their testimony was not valid. Okay, we were considered kind of inferior beings. Fine, that's fine. But our testimony would not be credited, would not be accepted. Today we would say that he had no probative value. So imagine, Christianity chooses beings who had no probative value to transmit its most unlikely truth on the one that most contradicts physical laws. This was so. This is almost subversive. Because when all is said and done, these 3 ladies, okay, today we would probably say that they were, 3 nice church-going ladies kind of thing, okay? Just to make matters worse, if things are not bad enough, okay, one of them, Mary Magdalene, was on top of all that, she had been a prostitute, public prostitute, known by everyone to be so. So not only do you have women, but on top of all that, the one who is saying it is a prostitute. Not only that she was considered a little bit sort of lightheaded, sort of the elevator didn't go all the way up to the top floor kind of thing. And they and she are giving the privilege to be the ones that say that. And the one that makes some gentleman who might have been at the time, let us assume for the sake of argument that they might have been a little bit sexist or something, it doesn't matter. Certainly more than you. Or that people could imagine men to be like in those days. Okay, so you have it easy. I'm going to ask you, does that not make you think? Because I think that if you think about it, there is a lot to think about. It would have been much, much easier. First, easier, simpler for everyone, that there were men. They would have been taken more seriously. But not only men, why not some important men? How about the governor of the province? Oh my goodness, Pontius Pilate just went to check if the thing, and he found that, okay. Or, the high priest of the Sanhedrin? No. So he chooses 3 women whose testimony has no value for the culture of the time, and among those 3 women, a prostitute. So let us think about this. Deep down, there is an interpolation for you to what is happening is that the archetypes or topics are being changed. You have to get out of the box. This is not trivial. It is an inversion of all the categories of the time. They're making it very difficult for us. They're telling you, you're supposed to believe in some ladies who did not count really all that much. They're making it very difficult. But at the same time, it's an invitation to reconsider your position of what merits credit and what not merits credit. What I'm saying is that you will die one day without really knowing if the earth revolves around the sun. You will die without ever having seen a virus or bacteria. You will die without knowing if vitamin C is real for yourself. You will die even without knowing whether there is a North Pole or a South Pole really. We trust on people who say, because they say they have proven it. And the reasons that derive from that discovery or that knowledge. And I'm going to leave you saying, and just make you go insane, to say that believing in the resurrection of Christ is the same. Never! You yourself have to believe people who have proved it, who testified to it, the least likely people. And the effect that belief had in the history of humanity. Okay, so now, as I said, you might say, for example, I do not believe in a creator, but I do believe that people believe that there is one, and their lives and the effects of their beliefs in their lives and in the lives of society have an effect. So whether he does exist or doesn't exist, the mere fact that some people believe it does, that makes it real in a sense because of its effects and its results on other people. It exists because the consequences of people who believe in it, in reality, that belief makes it real. That is what you might say. For example, you might argue with me, I may not believe in communism as an ideology, but I know there are people who do believe so. So the fact that they believe it and act consequently to that belief, the effect is that it is really something real. Its existence is based on the fact that people believe it exists, right? Well, I don't think that religion is the same as an ideology. I think they are very, very different. In fact, religious belief, I would say, is almost the opposite of a political ideology. I think that the more religious you are, the less ideological. You become sort of de-ideologized because in some way ideology is a substitute for religion. A political ideology is a need to satisfy those yearnings, those longings natural to human beings, to which religion gives an answer to. Those desires, once they have been blinded, they flourish in a different way, in a twisted way, because you're looking for sort of paradise on earth, and we all know that paradise on earth is unrealizable. But we want to be deceived and we accept it. I think that religion and political ideologies are opposites. The more ideological you become, the more you deny the possibility of religious faith, and vice versa. The more you deepen your religious faith, the more you consider political ideologies something like firecrackers, It seems to me. In fact, let's say that the main means of the De-Christianization that modernism, that it was caused, this De-Christianization, was because of ideologies. And the source of the decay of the putrefaction of our societies is these ideologies and this De-Christianization, or even Christians becoming ideologized. Christians who adopt ideologies, they start little by little abandoning their faith. And this is seen more clearly in those places that are strongly ideological. For example, places like France, which in order to assume, let's say, the ideology of, let's say, human rights, the maxims of the French Revolution, etc., need to renounce religious faith. Take the cynic. A man who does not believe in anything that he supposedly defends, or anything that he supposedly fights against. His resentment has led him to cynicism, and he believes in nothing, and therefore has no scruples. He takes this aseptic, cruel rigidity with him. From time to time he will have moments of weakness which he cannot explain. Can a bad man become good? Can a man who believes in nothing, a cynic, can he believe in something? Can that change take place? Dostoevsky said that if God for a cynic, if God doesn't exist, I can do whatever I want. Easy. But where does that "I can do everything" take you? A method of health recovery here could be to forgive injuries that you have received. Difficult. Will the cynic be able to do so? First of all, he would have to forgive himself for what he has done. Forgive himself, in other words, to repent, and then forgive the others who injured him. Human action is completely empty, in his case, of any moral discernment. I have just looked at the clock, and I think I have been going on for a little bit too long, so I think I'm going to leave it here without providing any answers as usual, but just in order for you to ask more questions or start thinking about these questions. Anyway, okay, thank you so much for listening. Have a very happy Christmas. Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.